everyone. Today I'm doing a different kind of video. I'm going to be comparing the two editing solutions that I've been playing with, namely VSDC and Kdenlive. I chose these two software because they are the leanest in terms of the disk space that they take up on the computer and therefore suitable for people who are on a budget and using computers with low to mid specs. I'm going to take the viewpoint of someone like me who is fairly new to vlogging, not very experienced in video editing, but has ambitions to create more sophisticated content and wants something that's able to grow with them. First of all, let's talk about how we import media into the two different tools. Here I'm in VSDC and I want to import a new video into my timeline. So I'm going to click on the Add Video icon at the side of the preview window, go into my footage folder, and then I can import the video clip that I want. The window that pops up gives you a lot of options as to where you want to put the video in your timeline. You can choose from scene beginning or end, set a manual position according to the time in your timeline, or put it where your playhead is located. You can also choose different options for the layer that you want to insert it into. But the one thing you cannot do is that you are not going to be able to have a media pool where you can shop for different clips. So to see your clip, you need to go into the Objects Explorer here, and then you will see the file name of your clip. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I import media into Kdenlive. First of all, I go into the Editing tab, and then over here there's an icon where I can add a clip or folder. So it's much more efficient because I can pick a folder and then I can import everything that's in it. So then I have my entire folder full of clips. I'm going back to VSDC now. I have my clip in the timeline, and in the editor ribbon, there are several buttons that you can use for cutting clips. The scissors button has a few options: cut out fragment, trim start and trim end, and then there is also the razor button here, which can make cuts in the middle of a clip. First of all, what I like to do with the clip where I have a lot of spoken content is to show the audio waveform. So I go here and click Show Waveform, and I also want to choose a zoom level that will enable me to see the waveform more clearly. Now this is only available in the Pro version, so that was the main reason why I upgraded. Let's get the start and end points of this clip. So you can see here I started speaking, so I can easily look at that on the waveform and then take this and hit Trim Start. Then I can do the same thing to go to where I stop speaking and hit Trim End. I can also delete middle parts of the clip where there was no speech by going into this slider and positioning it to select a part of the clip and select Cut Out Fragment. Then I can play through the clip, and here you can adjust what is the quality that you play through in your preview. So usually I choose 480p or 360p when I have more materials in my timeline, so as to keep my playback running smoothly. So let's say I want to make a cut in the middle of the clip. I can click the clip and then click on the razor icon, and it will cut the clip in two. However, if I do this, both of these two sub-clips are going to be auto-selected. So if I want to delete anything, I'm going to need to click somewhere else on my timeline to deselect the clips before going back in and then deleting it. Now you see that I had P10331 and P10332, but after I deleted it, P10332 is gone. That is a problem with VSDC, that because of their resource management, they do not keep a media pool, and so anything that you delete will go away from your project, and if you want to get it back, you will have to re-import the clip. So Now we'll move on to cutting clips in Kdenlive. We start with the project bin, which is where we can shop amongst all the clips that we have imported. So I select a clip and it will appear into my clip monitor. This is where I can set in and out points. So I can scrub through, find the start of my audio waveform, and then click on this button to say set zone in. So that sets my in point. And then I move all the way to the end of the audio waveform. And then that is where I will set my out point. And I can actually tweak them also after I have clicked. So this blue section is going to be the section of the clip that I have kept. Then I just pick this clip up and I can drag it into whichever track I want in the timeline. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I cut clips in the timeline of Kdenlive. Here I have moved the clip with its in and out points into the timeline, and I want to make a cut in the middle of the clip. To do so, I have to select the clip, and then here I have the select icon selected. I need to select the cut icon, and there will be a red line which I move to match with my white line. I must make sure that my cursor is on top of the clip, otherwise it will not cut. So then I click and it cuts the clip into two portions. After that, I need to go back to the select icon. That is when I can take this part that I don't want, delete it, right click here, and then click remove space, and that will remove the space between this clip and the one before it. Okay, now we are moving on to talk about creating transitions between scenes. Here, I want to create a transition between the intro and my main video. So in this example, I'm trying to make the Kdenlive logo dissolve into my main video. In VSDC, this is how I do it. Kdenlive is an object in my timeline, so I can select it and then go into its timeline. I have already created the transitions here, but I'll just walk through how it gets done. I right click, go to video effects. That is where I can add video effects and go into the transitions and select something. You'll see that each transition is its own object with a properties window. So I can choose, for example, the diffuse FX1, and I can change some of the characteristics of this transition within its properties window. Same for the wipe. There are different types of wipes, for example. So you can see that there are different types here that I can choose, as well as different cell widths to adjust how the wipe looks. So just to show how this works, I'm going to play through the transitions. Hi everyone. The last thing I want to highlight about transitions is that in the properties window, there is a parameter called directly. So directly equals to true will send the end of the transition directly into the next clip, whereas if it is false, then it could possibly transition into a blank screen before going into the next clip. Now I'm going to move on to how I did this in Kdenlive. These are the exact same two clips, and I have a wipe coming in and a dissolve going out. I have it all set up here, and I'm going to walk through how it was set up. So I need to select the clips. I use Shift and Select to select, and then I can go to Insert a Composition and Composite and Transform. There's also Wipe. So for example, when I go to Composite and Transform, this is where I get my dissolve. So I'm going to click it here, and this is the menu that I can choose different types of composite, and so that is where my dissolve is. I change the duration of the transitions by moving them on the main timeline, and I can also change some of the parameters in the effect composition stack. It appears here in editing mode, but I can also go into effects, and then it will come up here and I can adjust it. So I had to do two dissolves because unlike VSDC, where the color background is a part of the background, so it's part of the clip itself, I have to create a color clip in order to create the color background in Kdenlive. So I'm putting dissolve onto two items. Now I'm going to play through this transition so you can see what it looks like. Hi everyone. There's another thing I want to show about Kdenlive, and that is how to fade scenes in and out. So you see that at every clip, there is going to be a green dot at the start of the clip, and there's a red dot at the end of the clip. So to fade in is very easy. You just pull this to the length of the fade that you want. And similarly, to fade out, you can fade this way. So let's say I want these both to fade out as well as to dissolve. Then this is how it's going to play out.
Hi everyone.
Okay, now I'm going to create some text to animate into my screen. So I hit text, and then I can choose it to enter from scene begin. Click OK, and I have a text box that I draw out, and I can start typing. To manage the font of the text, I can go into editor, and there will be a font preview that I can select to shop for whatever fonts that I want. So then I can change the text color here, and it will give me a screen with more colors. Looks very much like Microsoft PowerPoint. So I can choose these or type in the hex code of the color I want, or I can go into custom, and there will be RGB settings that I can customize as well. The brush color is the color of the outline, and there's also a contour color. So for example, I can pick a blue, and then this text would be outlined in blue. So there's a lot of options here for doing customization. There are bold, italic, font sizes, strike-throughs, etc., etc. If you're familiar with PowerPoint, you will find that it's really easy to navigate this interface. You can just resize and move the text around on the screen. And then to add in any kind of motions to the text, you can just add a transition, for example. So go to Video Effects, Transitions, Wipe, and then from Scene Begin, you can pick the type of wipe here. So let's say side right to left, that will make it wipe this way. Or if you want the text to fly in, you can also add a movement. So first of all, I'm going to move the object to where I want it to be at the start. So I move this text out here, and I can fine tune in the properties window the coordinates. So for example, here I can put 540 so that it's exactly centered on my screen. And then the left coordinate is negative because it's off the screen. Here I'm going to add a movement. So I add the movement, and I set it arbitrarily to the length of the object duration at this point, but I can move the ending keyframe later. So it gives me a point position where I can click the purple square, and it gives me the starting position. And then I move it from the start to the ending position. And then I click again. And that is where it will give me the keyframe, which I then adjust to where I want it to be. So let's say I want this move to come in at 2 seconds. I put it here, and I can adjust the final position again also by adjusting the coordinates. So then if I play this through, I will have my media management flying in like this. In Kdenlive, if I want to create a color background, I have to create a color clip. So I go here, and then I choose Add Color Clip, and then I can choose the color here. So there's a small range of colors that you can pick from this menu. But then again, if you are not satisfied with these, you can go into the custom colors, and then you can enter the HTML codes or RGB codes of the colors that you want as well. So now I'm going to create a yellow color clip. Click OK. And then I can move this into my media pool, and I can bring this into my timeline. Okay, to edit the duration of the clip, I can go into here, edit duration, and then I can set the clip to be 3 seconds. Now that I have my background, I can overlay text in it by adding a title clip. So I come here and add title clip, and a title clip will appear where I can then enter my text box. Notice that unlike VSDC, Kdenlive does not give you text previews. So here I have to choose the font impact and then I can type out. I can have an outline and change the number of pixels in the outline here. I can either move it by click and dragging it, or I can enter the X and Y coordinates that I want it to have. Then I create the title clip by clicking Create Title. I have to look for this title clip here and click and drag it into the timeline, where I can then adjust the position accordingly. Okay, now I'm going to show you how we animate text in Kdenlive. I'm going to attempt the same two things that we did with the text in VSDC. So first of all, to do a wipe, I select the word media management. I go to insert a composition and then I can go to wipe. So then I get a wipe that is here and on the timeline, and I can adjust it. Then let me play through this and we can see how it looks. Alright, so if I want to change the direction of the wipe, what I do is I go to Effects, and then I can click on the media management clip, wipe, and I can go to the wipe method. So there are different directions that it can wipe here. And let's say I want to do a bilinear wipe. Okay, one thing I've noticed is that I don't think there is a simple left to right wipe in the options, although there are many options that look pretty impressive. Okay, now I've taken away the wipe. I want to try the second option, which is to have the word media management move in horizontally. So I go to Video Effects, Alpha Transform, Transform. I pick this effect and I am going to click and drag it into the title clip. This gives me a screen here where I can look at the various keyframes and start to choreograph the movement of the media management word. So here I'm entering the coordinates with a bit of trial and error until I have it off my screen. Then what I do is that I move the keyframe to whichever keyframe I want it to be at and double click to create a new keyframe, and then I can put in my new coordinates. Okay, so now I can play this through to grow with them. Now that we've discussed how to add and animate text overlays, let's talk about image overlays. Here we are back to VSDC. I want to add two logos onto this screen, the VSDC and the Kdenlive logo. I can add images using this button at the toolbar. So like importing any other kind of media, VSDC gives you this screen where you can customize where your image wants to be in the timeline. So in this case, I've added it as a new layer so that the image and the video can be in my screen at the same time. I can resize the image directly in the preview window and move it around. Then I repeat the process for the Kdenlive logo. You can see that there's a handy guide that tells you whether your two objects are aligned to each other or not. Now I'm going to talk about how to superimpose images on Kdenlive. So I'm going to put the two logos into the intro part of this video. I have the logo here that I can click and drop into the timeline, and I can adjust its position. I'm going to zoom in here so I can see more clearly, and then I can adjust its position to stretch to the entire duration of my clip. But then I still need to size and to move it So I need to go into Effects, where I will look for Position and Zoom and pull the effect into the VSDC logo. So here I can select the entire thing, Position and Zoom, and then I will resize it. And I can move it around. Now I'm going to add on the Kdenlive logo. I cannot create a new layer automatically by pulling the logo into the timeline. So what I need to do is to come here and insert track. So I will insert a track above V2, and it is a video track. I have a new timeline. That is when I have a space to click and drag and put the Kdenlive logo in. So again, I do the same thing. I'm going to extend it, select it, Effects, Position and Zoom, pull it in, click on it, and then I get my window where I can adjust its sizing and its position. In this section, we are going to talk about how you can be more precise in terms of determining how long different pieces of images and video last, and also determining exactly which frame they come in and leave your screen. So this time, we are going to start with Kdenlive instead of VSDC. I'm going to show you where you can convert your timeline to look at frames instead of the time. So here in this rectangle, you can see that there is the overall time of total video that you have and the current timing that your playhead is currently at. So I can click this, a left click, and there is the hour, minute, second, and frame. Or I can go to frames and it will express these two numbers as a frame number. Then let's say I want to put in a color clip and I want it to last exactly 3 seconds. I have the color clip here in my clip monitor. I will click and drag it to the timeline. And that is where I can right click, go to edit duration. I can see exactly what is the position of the clip in my timeline. And I can check the duration as well, and I can edit it directly here. So I can say it is going to last for 3 seconds. Click OK. And let's say I want to do the same for the text that goes above the color clip. So I have the text clip in my clip monitor. I click and drag it down to the timeline here, and I also do the same thing, edit duration, and make it 3 seconds. And I can check whether both are going to start at the same time by going back again into edit duration, where here you have 20:55 and 13th frame. So I'm going to check this again, and it is 20 minutes, 55 seconds, and 13th frame. So you know that both of these items are going to come in and leave your screen at exactly the same time. Now I've moved on into VSDC to show you the features that they have for you to synchronize elements and to determine exactly when they are going to enter and when they are going to leave your screen. So here I am in one of my Pandas for Productivity tutorials, and as you can see, there's a lot of overlays. In this screen, there is a rectangle, and then there are another few layers of text. There's probably about 4 or 5 layers of text in here. So how do I get the rectangle and text 2 to be the same length? What I can do is I can go into the properties window. So the rectangle comes in at frame number 2965 and its duration is frame number 1789. And then I can go into text 2 and make sure that the time in and the duration are exactly the same in terms of frame numbers. So with each of these objects in the timeline having its own properties window, I can go into individual properties windows and make very fine-tuned adjustments. The other useful button is this button here, which gives you your current cursor position, meaning where your playhead is at, both in terms of the time as well as the frame numbers, and your maximum and minimum cursor positions for the entire timeline. So in this case, it would not necessarily be your entire project, but it is the current scene, which is a subset of the project that this timeline on this screen covers. I'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. So the other thing you need to note when it comes to editing accuracy is what happens when you pull out the clips in your timeline. Let's say I have this clip here. I'm going to pull it out, and you can see that I'm in Kdenlive here. What happens is that it's going to give me more of the same clip. So it's going to actually advance the frames that my clip ends at when I pulled it out. So see here, I actually got past where I finished the seam of the pants, but if I pull it in again, then I'm going to finish at an earlier frame. So let's say I pulled it in, and now my pants is not going to finish the seam. So the reason why Kdenlive can do this is because all the clips are actually there in your media pool, and you're just changing your in and out points. You don't have to take out any of the clips from your project every time you cut them. You're going to see later on in VSDC that this is very different. But before I get down to VSDC, there's something else I need to talk about: lengthening and shortening clips. If you want a certain bunch of action to be all covered, but you want that to be covered in a shorter period of time, then you can't do it by pulling out the clip or pushing the clip in the time frame, because that's going to truncate or expand the number of frames that you have. Instead, I'm going to go to this example where I want to cram a lengthy process into a much shorter period of time. What I did was to adjust the speed. So I right click on the clip, I go to change speed, and in Kdenlive it either lets me specify the new speed as a percentage of the old speed or a new duration. So I can tell it either how many seconds I want the clip to last, or I want to say, okay, I want it to move 327% of the speed of the old clip. So now I'm in VSDC and I want to look at the same thing. What happens when I pull out a clip? In this case, I'm going to look at this clip where I am sewing on a piece of pocket. So I had this little snippet where I sewed about halfway through the pocket, and I'm going to take this, take the edge, and pull it out a little bit longer. Okay, when you see it preview, it just stops there. So that is because VSDC operates differently from Kdenlive. Once you have cut off a part of the clip, it exits from your project, so VSDC cannot retrieve the additional pieces of the clip after the cut. So it just extends the last frame to as long as the additional duration that you have pulled the clip out for. Next, I'm going to talk about how VSDC adjusts the speed of your clips. So in this case, I'm looking at a clip where I was ironing out parts of the jean shorts pocket, and I want to see what the speed is. I go into the properties window, click on the clip, and here's the properties window. So this is the speed percentage, and I can edit this in order to adjust the speed of the clip. Now I'm going to move to another topic, which is on how you group different clips together. So in VSDC, there is this container called a sprite, which you can create to group a few clips together. And I like this because sometimes I'm cutting really tiny pieces of clips and I don't want to lose them. So the sprite becomes its own object. It has its own timeline, and I can click it in VSDC's timeline, and then I will see the individual clips that make up the sprite. If I want to add video effects, I can right click the sprite, get a video effect, and then I can edit whole parent duration, and then it will add the same effect to all the clips that are within this sprite container. To group clips into a sprite, what I do is that I have to control click each of the clips. Then I will right click them, and then I can hit convert to sprites, and then they will become a sprite in the timeline. The only thing that's troublesome is that I don't have a means to undo a sprite. So I can undo. For example, here I can hit edit undo, and then the sprite will become its component clips. But if I've created a sprite some time ago, I cannot ungroup all the clips after I have grouped them together. On the other hand, if I take all these clips and I group them together just like this, they can be grouped, and that is when I can take them out in the timeline and move them as a unit. Then I can ungroup them, and then they will become their own individual clips that can be split apart again. So that would be grouping and ungrouping. But the purpose of grouping it in a sprite is to be able to apply the same effects to this group of clips, which you cannot do if you have grouped the clips, because it doesn't create any new object. It just puts them together so that you can move them around as a unit on the timeline. In Kdenlive, how do I group the clips? I have to hit shift and then use my mouse to select the group of clips on the timeline. Then I can right click and say group clips. So this is not going to do anything about effects, but what it will do is that I can then move this set of clips, and they are going to be stuck to each other when I move them on the timeline. I can then right click again, and I can ungroup the clips. Alright, now we are talking about audio, and for the purposes of this clip, I have muted my desktop sound so that you don't get interrupted by the sound of Kdenlive. But what I want to introduce is that there's an audio tab where you can see the diagram of the audio spectrum. You can also see the audio mixer, which gives you the different tracks, and you can adjust the volume gains in each of the tracks individually. So this is super useful when I have voiceovers and camera audio from two different sources, and I need to put a gain on one and not on the other one. Then I will organize all my voiceover to a single track, in this case A2. I put a gain on it, but all my camera audio on A1 does not have any kind of gain. So now I'm going to do a bit of a playback, and you can see that there is a spectrum diagram as well as the color coding here. And as long as the color is green, then I know I'm not topping out in terms of my volume. Hi everyone, welcome to the very first episode of H Can Hack, the show where I take you with me on my quest for handmade, not homemade. Did you hear the background noise in this track? So that is one issue that I haven't been able to solve directly in Kdenlive, because you have to import another program called Audacity, which is a separate open source software, in order to correct the audio for background noise. Next, I'm going to talk about how I deal with this in VSDC. In VSDC, there is this audio effect to deal with background noise. I'm going to click on the clip and then into its timeline. This is the audio gate, which you can see I can adjust different parameters, including the threshold at which the gate kicks in to filter out what is noise and what is the actual audio. How do I get to this? I right click, go to audio effects, filters, and then to gate. I have not really done much to adjust the properties of the gate beyond the defaults at this point, just a bit of tweaking of the threshold. So let me play the same audio and let's see how it sounds in VSDC with the audio gate. Hi everyone, welcome to the very first episode of H Can Hack, the show where I take you with me on my quest for handmade, not homemade. Much better, isn't it? So that is really convenient that you have noise correction right in the program itself. But then the drawback of VSDC for audio is that there is no mixer panel for me to adjust audio of an entire track altogether. I need to go into each clip and then I will select it, look at the properties window, and look for the audio volume in decibels, and then I can adjust the audio volume. So for example here, I have my background music, so I've adjusted the volume to be negative so that it doesn't overpower my own voiceover audio. The other thing I can do is to normalize audio. So what I normally do is that I will control select, and then I will go to audio effects, amplitude, and I will normalize the audio together. Okay, now I'm going to talk about color grading and color correction. This time I'm starting with VSDC, and I'm showing you one of my actual videos where I had to do fairly extensive color corrections. Firstly, I want to show you the quick styles and presets. So these are under video effects, quick styles, and you can see at a glance all the various styles and filters that they have. You can also get here by going to a video, right click, and then you go to video effects, and then quick styles will open up as well. The ones that I use the most often are auto levels and auto contrast. So here what I've done to remove the yellow in my scene is to go to hue, saturation, and lightness. So I go to video effects, adjustments, and hue, saturation, lightness. I already have it in this video, so I'm going to click on it to see the properties window. And here you can find a simple color wheel where I push a bit of the yellow in and push out some of the other colors to balance out the colors in the various parts of the frame. I also made some slight adjustments to the saturation and lightness levels. So although I didn't use the RGB curve in this example, I can show you what it has in its templates. So here I click RGB, and in the properties window, there is a curve which you are able to do your own customizations. You can also click on the templates and select any one of these. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is LUTs. So LUTs come again from video effects, adjustment, and LUTs. Here I have a sample LUT here where I can select different presets here. So there's about 10 different presets that I can choose from. In Kdenlive, I find that the color correction is a lot harder to understand, and so I have not been using it very much. Here I've just tried to navigate the interface to show you where the various kinds of tools are, specifically the color wheels as well as the RGB curves. So these are the color wheels, and they are under lift, gamma, gain. So how you get at this is that you go into the color tab, and then you open up this color menu, you choose this, and then you click and drag it into the clip that you want to correct. Then it will appear on the effect composition stack, and that's where you can adjust it. And the RGB is at this option, Bezier curves. The other thing that I have also not really mastered is the paint mode. So you can choose different background and paint modes, and that will also affect the colors. Both VSDC and Kdenlive have screen recording functions, but neither is really ideal. So in Kdenlive, what you do is you go to View, you can pick Screen Grab, and then this neat little interface appears with a record button. So you can record, and then it's recording now, and then you hit record again, and then the screen grab is going to come up. So then you're going to get an MOV file that's going to come into your project bin, and which you can play in your clips monitor, and you can also import it into your timeline. I really like the elegance of this screen record interface, except that it has one major problem, which is that you can only record reliably in mute. So here I'm trying to record with audio. So I check my audio settings, and I'm going to choose encoding profile is X264 with audio, apply, OK. Then I start to record, and it is going to give me an error message. So it crashes, and I cannot start the screen recorder again until I reopen Kdenlive after closing it. So now I'm in VSDC, and I want to showcase how to activate the screen recorder. I can also hit screen capture, so that is one option, or I can go to tools, screen capture, hit this, and that will also activate this widget here. Under the video and audio sources, I can choose whether I want to record through my microphone or through the system audio or not to record audio. And I can also choose what I want to record in terms of which monitor and whether I'm using cursors and overlays or not. So I choose the settings in terms of what the video format is. Frankly, I'm not very happy with their formats, which are Windows Media Audio and Video files. So when I hit start recording, it will have a little widget in the corner of the window, and then I have to continue hitting start recording again, and then it will record, and I will go to the taskbar where I have this little icon here. I right click it, and then it will be able to give me a few options: continue, pause, or stop recording. So I can stop recording here, and it will generate the recorded file in the folder that I have specified it to go to. Okay, now it's time to play back the screen recordings, and then you will understand why I need to use a third-party screen recording software instead of either of these two options. So now I found the Kdenlive file and I'm trying to play it back in Windows Media Player. I double click, but then Windows Media Player refuses to play it back even though it's an MOV file, and that makes me a little bit annoyed. I know that I can still play it and edit it in the video editing software, but it just is so much easier if I can preview it in Windows Media Player beforehand. Now on to the file from VSDC. I'm going to hit it and play, and it plays very nicely, so that's not a problem. Although you can see that the resolution is not that great. This is a 15 frames per second video, not 30 frames per second like the rest of my footage. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the resource consumption of these two screen recording softwares. So I have here a list of all the clips from one section of my current video here, and I'm going to show you which screen records came from which source. So these two Windows Media Audio files at about 5 minutes, they came from VSDC, and you can see that the file size is really huge. It's over 100 kilobytes. In contrast, I have a 5-minute file here that is MP4 format, and it was recorded with OBS, which is an open source free software which is dedicated for screen recording, and it is only about 1/10 of the file size at the same length of video. This file here is MOV, is from Kdenlive. It's about similar in size with the MP4 file from OBS. The only difference is that the MP4 file from OBS plays back so much better. So you can see here that it's playing back very smoothly in Windows Media Player. Because the key reason why we are talking about VSDC and Kdenlive today is the fact that they take up relatively little resources on your computer, I want to devote a section to resource management. First of all, I want to highlight Kdenlive's settings because they enable proxy clips unlike VSDC. So you go to settings here, configure Kdenlive. There is a section called proxy clips, and you can click enable proxy clips. So I apply and OK, and this enables me to use the proxy clips function to reduce the size of the clips in my editing project. Next, I'm going to show how the system audio plays very well in preview, even though you have sped up the footage. So I'm going back to this region of sped up footage, and I'm going to play the Kdenlive audio. Next, I bring the 3 pocket pieces and the 2 front pocket facings back to the ironing station. Turn the edges in by 3/8 inch and press them down. I thought about serging them to prevent fraying, but on ready-to-wear jeans they usually are just pressed in. So that sounded really good, right? Okay, now let's play the same section of footage in VSDC, and you can notice that I have used 360p to try to reduce the load on my system when playing back. 3/8 inch and press them down. I thought about serging them to prevent fraying, but on ready-to-wear jeans they usually are just pressed in. I think that's because the serging. So my audio is kind of breaking up in the preview playback, and even though that corrects itself when the project has actually rendered, I think it is more reassuring when your preview actually plays back reliably when you are speeding up the footage on top of it. Now I'm going to move on to another useful feature, and this time it is in VSDC. So under options, you can choose saving options and auto save at different intervals. Usually I like to choose every 5 minutes, although you can do as frequently as every 3 minutes. These are very unobtrusive, and it will just do a quick flash on your screen when it saves, and then it's super quick, just about a second, and it will save. The other aspect of VSDC I want to look at is scenes. So you can see here that I am in the Projects Explorer tab, and it shows you that this project has got 4 scenes. So each scene has its own timeline, as you can see, and that allows me to break up my project into manageable chunks. It also means that when I am doing editing, VSDC does not need to process too much video in the same timeline. One thing you need to be careful is that you might accidentally create blank scenes in front or behind your actual footage. You need to go into Projects Explorer and delete any scenes that you may have accidentally created and don't want. Otherwise, you might get black screens where you do not want them at the beginning and end of your project. Okay, now I'm jumping back into Kdenlive, and I want to show you how it manages backups. So for Kdenlive, they will sometimes initiate a backup when you manually save. You have to be more disciplined in terms of saving manually on a regular basis. And it will generate new backups every time. So you can see here over time, Kdenlive has generated 3 backups for me. And the size is roughly about the same size as my original project. Conversely, VSDC will generate only 1 backup. And again, it is a similar size to the original project, but it would be auto-refreshed every single time that you have an auto backup. So this is VSDC's page for rendering. It is under the tab Export Project. There is a window where you can activate a preview which shows you which point of your video you have rendered up to. And there's also a profile menu which you have to pay attention to, because even if you select settings such as web and for YouTube, it does not automatically adjust your resolution or profile, and it also does not necessarily follow the profile that you have set up your project. You have to consciously select 1080p here. I made that mistake when I first started, that the default was 4K, so I was unintentionally exporting my 1080p footage into 4K output, and that resulted in an unideal aspect ratio as well as a reduction in resolution. When you hit Export Project, you can hit Stop Conversion anytime. This is super useful because if you want to just render a little bit of your project to check how it renders, you can just export for a few minutes and then stop it. Alright, now I'm getting ready to render in Kdenlive. Before I do any renders, I want to point out this feature, which is the preview render. So that can do a quick render if you want to see any parts of the project and how they render out. To render, I'm going to Project, and then I'm just going to hit Render. Control Return will also give you a render. So here I choose MP4 format and full project, and then I can just hit Render to File, and it will continue to render. Alright, now I'm comparing the rendering performance of the exact same project in VSDC and Kdenlive. I had 11 minutes and 53 seconds of video with 3 audio tracks and about 2 layers of video. The size of the VSDC file was 1.4 gigabytes, whereas the Kdenlive file was 615 megabytes. In conclusion, both of these tools are available for entirely free, and yet they will give you an insane amount of control over your final output. In my opinion, Kdenlive is better at overall resource management, media management, as well as the editing flow, and therefore it is a good choice for you if you want to be creative. However, if you're using a lot of image and text overlays, then VSDC will improve your efficiency because you do not need to do complex compositing, and your workflow will be very much like what you have in Microsoft PowerPoint. Also, if you want beginner presets but also the ability to grow in the future, then VSDC could be a good choice for you. I hope that this is useful and that it will help you to make a choice between these various options. Thank you for watching.